Sutta 4. The Sutta of the Senses Before Sight. Thus have I heard, spoken in the quiet rising of the earliest perceptions, long after life first stirred in the warm waters of the earth, after molecules had learned to preserve pattern, after cells had gathered into communities and bodies, a new unfolding began, subtle, gradual, unseen. Life began to feel, not emotions, not thoughts, but the gentlest hints of difference, warm and cool, light and dark, nutrient and poison. These feelings were not yet experiences. They were chemical instructions, simple gradients guiding simple beings. Yet from these quiet beginnings, the senses that now bind the human world took their first breath. Cells learned to notice when particles touch their membranes. They learned to respond to pressure, to acidity, to chemical drift. Proteins folded into shapes that caught light, though no creature yet saw it. Pigments reacted to photons, though no mind yet interpreted the glow. Here disciples understand a subtle truth. There were senses long before there was seeing, and there was perception long before there was a self to perceive. What you call sound, vibration in air, was once only molecular movement. What you call sight, the image of the world, was once only electrons jumping in pigment. What you call touch, the meeting of body and world, was once only ions shifting across a membrane. In reality, there have never been sounds. There have never been colors. There have never been solid objects in the way the mind later imagines. There have only ever been interactions, encoded by bodies, interpreted by minds, mistaken for things independent of interpretation. And so early beings, through countless generations, accumulated refinements in sensing. Some cells joined together to form nerves, some nerves linked to muscles. Some clusters of cells became simple networks, echoing signals back and forth. Still no mind, still no self, still no center. Only the deepening of capacity. In the oceans, trilobites began to move toward light. In the shallows, simple worms learned to follow gradients. In the mud, early creatures recoiled from harm before they knew what harm was. Action preceded comprehension. Response preceded awareness. Survival preceded identity. Thus it was that the first nervous systems emerged, webs of sensitivity and response, mapping the world in impulses long before the idea of a world existed. Disciples, reflect on this. Seeing arose before a seer. Hearing arose before a hearer. Sensation arose before a self. The inner and outer were not yet divided. There was only the dance of conditions, shaping bodies according to what allowed them to continue. Millions of years passed. Nervous systems grew more complex. Some creatures began to integrate signals, to combine light and movement, to recognize patterns, to anticipate. From this integration came the first glimmers of awareness, not yet reflective, not yet personal, but a beginning of presence. And yet even here, awareness knew nothing of itself. There was no I. There was only experience without a center to claim it. In this way, sensation, from the simplest chemical drift to the early flicker of vision, laid the foundation for what would later be consciousness. It was not designed. It was not willed. It was not guided by a self. It arose because conditions allowed it. From chemistry came sensation. From sensation came perception. From perception came awareness. From awareness would one day arise the illusion of I. But that comes later. For now, it is enough to see that the senses did not appear fully formed. They grew from the earth itself, from its oceans, its light, its gravity, its dust from ancient stars. Every sight you see today is the descendant of pigments that once floated in primordial seas. Every sound you hear is the air of pressure responses in soft-bodied ancestors. Every touch, every flavor, every breath carries the memory of beings that learned, slowly and without knowing, to navigate the world. Thus the senses, which seem so immediate, so obvious, so real, are in truth the complex inheritance of innumerable forms striving to continue. And from these senses, the possibility of mind would arise, and from mind, the possibility of self, and from self, the possibility of ignorance and suffering. Yet also, disciples, from this same unfolding arises the possibility of wisdom, for that which appears can also be seen through. This is the sutta of the senses before sight, teaching that perception is dependently arisen, empty, and older than any mind that now grasps at it.